Hello, I'm Dustin Ream, and I'm here with my colleague Dakota Bethke. He's on the leadership team here with the organization that I work for, and we're going to talk to him about leadership style and management, and maybe a couple other topics as well. Do you want to first tell us what you do with the organization?
Sure. So my role within this organization is to onboard and develop new talent. So we start with talent sourcing. From talent sourcing, the focus there is providing a good onboarding experience. We have a pretty long onboarding runway. So thereafter, the onboarding is completed. We, as a new hire manager, my job is to prepare somebody to then go to prepare them for their time with their then long-term manager that's going to really develop them in the first parts of their career, first year in their career here.
Excellent. How would you describe your leadership style?
Yes, so there's a lot of ways that folks will there's a lot of idealistic traits to have in leadership, empathy, accountability, credibility, all these things, right? So for me, I try to be a bit more simplistic with my approach to it, in which I think that my my leadership style would be just a passionate leadership style for having and driving career oriented goals for folks. As an onboarding and new hiring manager, um, I don't get to have a tremendous effect in some of the more developmental parts of somebody's career. But what I can do is get them excited to be a part of an
Yeah.
institution, and to try to position them as best I can to then be successful in the institution thereafter. Only way for me to do that is to be passionate
Yeah.
about the job as in and of itself.
Great. That leads right into this. So, what aspect of the processes that you do or the interactions you have within your role give you the most life? What do you find to be the best part?
Sure. So definitely the white glove service of it's almost like we talk about just service in general, being of service to other folks, being of service to people. Um, Part of being an onboarding manager and a new hire manager, and being basically the brand of the company on in the very beginning. A first impression is a lasting one. Something I really enjoy is being able to give a white glove service experience. It's an elevated service experience. I am here to serve new hires in beginning their journey, and I get to have a lot of accountability in making sure that I'm presenting the company as best as I can, and also an honest representation of the company. There can be dishonesty in brand messaging from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I like to do is to make sure that somebody fully understands who we are as a culture in our office, right?
Yeah.
When you work for a big company, um, there are sects of culture throughout every office, every building, every organization. So, I one of the things I enjoy the most is providing that service of, hey, this is who we are, right?
Love that. So then, what's the most challenging?
So it's literally, pardon me, it's to go back and forth, right? I think the most challenging thing is creating creating the culture of, pardon me, sorry, getting people to basically buy into that culture, right? So in the beginning, folks are going to typically, for better or for worse, just act a bit more timid. And when you're new to a place, you may show inadvertently that you may say that you're buying into something. You may say that, hey, I'm excited to be here and a part of this organization. But whether or not you feel that way. So I think
Right.
the most challenging thing is to get folks to, let their guard down enough to let me know if they truly do feel like they are becoming and working toward being a part of the culture. And then me, as somebody in, their onboarding, their new hire, their first several months within their career, getting folks to speak candidly and openly about what concerns they're having with
Mm,
with the company. A lot of folks, especially in the beginning, don't want to be honest.
right. Sure. How do you practice self care?
Yeah, so I think definitely not thinking about work, but more specifically having cathartic hobbies or interests outside of work. Um,
Mm,
you know, I think that you know a work life balance is something that we everyone says they do well, and everyone says, "Hey, I have a good work life balance." Whether or not folks actually are holding themselves accountable to having that work life balance is another thing. So, for me, it is to, as best I can, leave whatever is happening at work at the door on upon exiting work for the day,
mhm.
and knowing that in the grand scheme, and if folks are in very busy, chaotic, stressful roles, knowing that that stress is going to be there tomorrow for you, no matter what. So, I think that having the ability to understand that everything that we do and tasks that come up and deadlines that need to be met, um, we could sort of compact this within our work week and keep that as part of our work mindset, and then try to do as best we can to disconnect from that, likely with some form of, again, for me, some form of cathartic hobby outside of work,
Mhm.
something to focus on, creatively, artistically. For some folks, it's exercise, etc. Right, but just having something, and I know that's a pretty generic response, but
Sure.
having something to do there outside of work.
Good. So you talked about making sure that you're creating the type of culture. You know, most of what you said was kind of focused toward the organization. What do you personally find as the ideal work culture?
So the the ideal work culture is a culture that understands that strategy is never the short typically is not the shortcoming of a business model. Strategy is typically solid, especially in this case in a larger company. We tend to have good strategy. What people tend to do, what the problem is performance and execution. So the strategy's there. We know what we have to do to succeed, but there are folks missing on performance execution to then actually fulfill the strategy. A culture of, I think, quick and honest feedback amongst everybody within. You want to develop a culture that there are no unwritten rules or unspoken rules. But we also want to drive a culture of folks that understand that with performance and execution, it does create growth. If there is an enterprise growth by executing strategy, how we intend to execute strategy, there will be personal growth for yourself, for your team, um, and all of the normal stuff, right? Building a team of leaders via sharing where we are and helping people understand on an enterprise level what that strategy is. But again, what I see more commonly now is when we think about culture, it is the most important thing for most levels of leadership, uh, because that's what you need to have to actually execute on whatever the
Excellent.
strategy the business is trying to do.
Um, Speaking of strategies, what strategies have you found to implement and improve morale and engagement?
Yeah, so I think you can, within reason, you want to, very basic functions such as an on site or on premise work group work chat to
Mhm.
kind of be off of a monitoring channel and just sort of be a authentic venting area within, these are good things. So like having ways for folks to speak clearly and authentically about what they're experiencing in a group of people that understand what they're going through. Um, I think that is really helpful with within reason of risk or sensitive information. But I think that beyond that, you want to, and everybody I think would have to be just just honest with each other and human with each other. There are, like in any business, there will be messaging that is not consistent with people's values on the team, leaders' values that are leading the team. Um, but understanding that the messaging has to be delivered, and maybe addressing, hey, listen, like this is what it is, right? This is what the messaging is. I think creating kind of more clear and less secretive
Mm-hmm.
barriers between what would be an associate and a manager level. But then also giving folks the opportunity, maybe a channel to speak about things without scrutiny.
Very good. How do you find? How do you judge if someone is on track for their goals and performance?
Yes, so the easy answer is ultimately you want to develop somebody who would then know whether or not they are on track for their goals or development.
Yeah.
Um, Outside of a metric based, if we're looking at metrics or performance, key performance indicators, etc. Outside of that, I think engagement, right? So if you notice a sudden, or it's almost like medical symptoms, like a sudden lack of engagement, or a disengagement over a amount of time, um, it's unlikely they're going to complete whatever goals they're trying to complete.
Good. So, final question: what are your strategies to address when people are not on track to meet their goals?
So there has to be a recalibration to what it is they are, what is they're here to achieve, right? So if we're saying that their goals are something that, if the team has the same goals and they are not on track to hit those goals, the form of empowerment would be to actually try to have this person become part of bigger conversations within that team and maybe speak on how to hit those goals in a team environment to better understand the impact of those goals within the team environment. So that's sort of verbose, but the idea would be to engage people and empower them with maybe even a bit more
Mm,
to get them to better understand what the overarching goal would be for it.
I love it.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much,
sure.
Dakota. I really appreciate your time
Thank you. I
today.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.